Visiting cards are so yesterday, but one thing you can do with them is bend them at will. Similarly, it's 2023 and you have flat screens on phones and they fold if you want them to. But this is Tech Today. We want to bring you the latest and greatest tech first on the show. So we have bendable tech right here in the Tech Today studio. The LG 42-inch bendable monitor is blowing our mind, and that's what we're going to show you on this special show. Well, there you go, the LG OLED Flex here in the flesh on Tech Today. A 42-inch monitor, TV, whatever you want to call it. Look, you've seen all sorts of cool things from LG and other brands when it comes to new emerging tech. We've seen foldables, of course, quite a few of them in the market. You've also seen rollable tech with us at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. You've also seen the LG Flex TV, which was this sort of workstation. Was it a monitor? Was it a TV? It flipped, it turned, you could drag it around. That was a Tech Today exclusive as well. But a few months down the line, you're now seeing the LG OLED Flex, which is very similar to the other OLEDs if you consider the C2 or the G2. Well, it's the same technology, but the difference here is that it bends. And it bends, and it's mind-bending and mind-blowing at it as well. And honestly, there's another remote. Now, the remote we have is the standard OLED remote, but the minute you press this button right here, go into settings, well, just like that, 95%, 10%, 85%, 80%, and it's literally, if I just do it in one shot, gone down to a flat screen TV as well. You want to go back to curved, you're back at curved in a matter of 3 or 4 seconds. Now, what's the use case for something like this? You could say this is a gaming monitor, but then this could also be a great workstation. It's got a switch mode as well. It also has multi-view features. But most importantly, it comes with LG's OLED technology. So when you're using it like a TV, it's got all the settings and the functions that come with a traditional OLED TV from LG. So the one thing you can be sure of when it's an LG TV is brilliant build quality, a big focus on innovation, because we don't see this as much, but there is a massive focus on innovation if you are getting into the next frontier and talking about bendable tech. Now, why would you need bendable tech? That might be the question mark on your forehead right now. Look, if you're into gaming and you want a more immersive experience, this is something I bet you should try out. The minute I play FIFA on this particular device, I kid you not, I am never going back to my flat screen LG OLED. Although it's a massive screen, fantastic sound, this one makes it so much more immersive. The more you make it curve or bend, the more immersive that experience is, especially when you're playing RPG games as well, or maybe a racing game like Grid. That makes a huge difference. But then when you get used to that sort of consumption pattern, it also makes a difference when you are working. Now, there's a lot of other things that make this an alluring purchase. If you talk about the ambient lighting settings on this particular television, then you have some cool stuff happening here. So if you go here on the lighting setting, you can adjust the lighting brightness, switch on the lighting, switch it off, and then the lighting modes. This is where the magic happens. Well, this is a lighting effect which will analyze the color of the screen that you're watching. So the kind of game that you're playing, and then enhance the overall experience with lights at the back in terms of ambience. You can also do that with sound sync, which for me personally is my favorite. There is a small nuance over here. Click on sound sync, and you can decide whether you want those lights to move like bars, like an equalizer for a DJ, when you have a bass sound, so the big thumping beats, and you'll see it moving at the back, or maybe mid-range, which is more ordinary sounds, or the treble. Well, you can make all of that happen with one quick customization. Now, while all these settings seem very similar to other LG OLED TVs, if you've owned one already, the OS is intuitive, slick, smooth, but there's one thing which makes this stand apart from even its brethren in the LG OLED lineup, which is a new technology called super anti-reflection. Now, what does super anti-reflection do if you have a bright sunny day, all sorts of lights in and around? Super anti-reflection, which is a coating on this particular TV, which ensures that all these visual distractions are minimized. And in terms of the sound, Well, usually TVs have speakers which are firing downwards, so they're not very clear, or there's a little bit of garble or some sort of interference. When it comes to this TV, one, you are seated much closer to the TV. Secondly, it has these Dolby Atmos supported 40-watt speakers which do a fairly decent job, especially if you're on this immersive sort of environment. Now, of course, the usual features: a 4K 120Hz display, the latest HDMI 2.1 features like variable refresh rate, VRR if you're playing all those games like Spider-Man, that makes a huge difference. It also comes with auto low latency mode, and it is G-Sync compatible and AMD FreeSync Premium certified. Now, of course, I've connected my PlayStation 5 to this particular TV, but let's hop on to the back of the TV to understand how this mechanism works. They obviously have a very cool setup right here, but let's figure out what the ports are like. So you have two USB ports and then 4 HDMI ports, and one of them comes with eARC support. Of course, if you want to put in your sound bars and whatnot. The lighting looks really cool. And then you have a USB PC port as well. Now, those are standard with most premium TVs, but something special about this TV is, yes, the fact that it bends, but more importantly, if you want to lift it, you can lift it further up. You want a little lower, it could be lower, right? And then you want to lift it up and then perhaps, well, bend it a little towards yourself. You're sat right here and it looks like you've created your own private arcade. And of course, when you switch it off, just like the Transformers movies, fun sound effects to complement it, and it's blending into the background like a flat screen TV. So you have that option as well, but it does not come cheap. Such technology from the future is going to be expensive, inevitably, at least now, till more of you buy it and more of us experiment with it and other brands come in with cheaper, accessible versions of it. But for now, this is nearly going to be 2.5 to 3 lakh rupees. And if you compare that to even the LG C2, one of the best gaming TVs ever made, something that I use personally, I think I spent nearly 1/3 that amount or half that amount to pick up a 55-inch TV. Yes, it is expensive, but it is very encouraging to see brands like LG continuing to innovate and trying to disrupt that space. We've seen Samsung with their foldables as well, and LG with their displays, if they're going to do all these sort of cool things. I think the day is not very far ahead when this 100% curvature that we're seeing, it's maybe what, 140, maybe 180 degrees. Very soon it'll be a 360-degree pod, and that might be some version of the metaverse where I don't need a VR headset. It's all around me with the Dolby Atmos systems and whatnot. So it's nice to showcase technology of the future for you here on Tech Today, but this is your first look of LG's bendable tech here on your favorite technology show. Well, that's a moment for the history books, and of course, the Tech Today team, like all of you all watching at home or wherever you were watching this particular historic moment, all of us were watching India Today, the home of Tech Today. And honestly, what a stellar job done by our team of reporters and anchors. And you've obviously been tuned in to the Tech Today website as well. That's www.techtoday.in to understand more about this particular mission. But over the past few days, if you've read a lot and consumed a lot of content, one thing we want to tell you, there's a lot of tech, AI, and so much that was at play behind this particular successful grand mission. And that's what the Tech Today team has put together for you in this special report.
Here we have a majestic liftoff carrying India's prestigious Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft.
लैंडर मॉड्यूल पूरी तरह से सेफली और सॉफ्टली चंद्रमा के सतह पे लैंड हो चुका है.
We have achieved soft landing on the moon.
23rd August was a historic day for India, to be remembered by generations in future. India has become the first country to soft land a spacecraft on the south pole of the moon and the fourth nation to reach the lunar surface. What is the significance of this mission? Earlier, the Chandrayaan mission discovered water on the lunar surface, providing further curiosity and possibility to offer rocket fuel, breathable oxygen, hydration for astronauts or even human stations in future. India now has an opportunity to discover if human survival is possible on the moon. Many space agencies from across the world were racing for the South Pole, including Russia, with its recent attempt with Luna 25. But India successfully managed to become the first nation to do the soft landing. Chandrayaan-3, launched on 14 July from Sriharikota, is a follow-up to Chandrayaan-2. 4 years after Chandrayaan-2 lander could not land as the on-ground crew lost contact with the lander during its descent, the next mission fulfilled the dream. 2's orbiter continues to circle the moon even today and will help the Vikram lander send images and data to Earth for analysis.
Chandrayaan-2 had, shall I say, some built-in problems. And one was a problem of the software where if I tell you that it was there in the program that it had contradictory commands. And one is to say go, one is to say not go. Another problem was the stability margin. And the stability was not proper because we had a very stringent weight budget with respect to Chandrayaan-2's lander.
Changes were made for the third mission with stronger legs for the Vikram lander. A broader landing area of 4.2 kilometers long and 2.5 kilometers wide, meaning the spacecraft had a higher margin of error. The earlier spacecraft had 500 meters to 500 meters patch as the landing zone. Additionally, with Chandrayaan-3, the scientists also focused on covering all bases by using a failure-based system, analyzing all that can possibly fail during the landing, including engine failure, calculation failure or failure of the sensors and so on. These scenarios were then rectified. The Chandrayaan-3 lander also carried more fuel than Chandrayaan-2 to ensure Vikram lander is able to make any last-minute change or maneuver in its landing site if required. Moreover, the Chandrayaan-3 lander had solar panels on all the 4 sides instead of 2 in Chandrayaan-2. This way, the lander can continue to draw solar power even if it landed in a wrong direction. These improvements contributed to a triumph touchdown of Chandrayaan-3. The mission does not end with the soft landing, but in fact begins now. Pragyan rover is currently performing experiments to study the history and composition of Moon's geology. With the help of its payload, it will derive chemical compositions and mineralogical composition on the lunar surface. It will also determine the elemental composition of the Moon and the rocks around the landing site. Both the Vikram lander and Pragyan rover are designed to function in the presence of only the sunlight. Hence, they will work there for 1 lunar day, which is equal to 14 Earth days. ISRO chief S. Somnath says that because the temperature of the Moon falls drastically in the absence of the sun, both lander and rover cannot work during that time.
Pragyan rover is just on the Moon now. Now we have to move it further. There are a lot of things to do, which includes path planning, traveling little more distances, then after that doing experiments with it. But that will take some more time, and we have to have various other conditions suitable for it, including ground visibility, the ground stations availability, and very many things have to be checked. So depending on that, further activities on rover will take place.
So what next for the space agency? ISRO chief has also announced a new mission called Aditya L1, which will be India's first solar mission. Expected to be launched next month, this mission will study sun's lair for nearly 5 years. With the success of Chandrayaan-3, ISRO has definitely reignited the passion for space exploration among millions across the globe. And clearly, there is a lot more to come.
Now, if this week was anything to go by, then one thing is absolutely certain. The next year, the next decade, well, the next 25 years and beyond are India's moment to shine. And here at the India Today Group, we have a signature conclave, the BT India at 100 Summit, which takes place in New Delhi. And that's the theme, India achieving global leadership by 2047. Some of the world's top policymakers, thinkers, leaders are all present at this event. And of course, India is going to disrupt the world when it comes to business, policy, and most importantly, technology. So here are some of the highlights from the BT India at 100 Summit.
As a tech enthusiasts. We've discussed artificial intelligence in a myriad ways, but the aspect that we're going to be talking about now is something that will absolutely blow your mind. A blockbuster session titled Managing with AI. We are honored to have a distinguished global professor who specializes in exploring the management implications of artificial intelligence. Our esteemed guest brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise, shedding light on the transformative power of AI in the world of management. In a conversation with Kali Puri, Vice Chairperson at the India Today Group. Guys, brace yourselves. This is going to be an amazing session. A huge round of applause, please.
I'm going to boil down this experiment to the question that is on most people's minds. If you're running a business, you probably want to know, is it going to save me cost? And if you are part of a business, you want to know, am I going to lose my job? So is AI going to cause job losses?
It'll certainly call and make transitions in jobs more acute, sometimes more frequent. That'll happen for sure. But let's look at, AI is, of course, is a long journey. And today, AI is just the next phase in the digital transformation that we all are going through and different sectors are going through. So what do I think is going to happen? I always say there are three axes of impact or change of AI. So one axis is you can actually apply AI in what we're doing today and get all the benefits of cost, quality, time. So take a simple example. In finance or in banking, if you want to get your wealth managed professionally, before you had to have a certain wealth level to be able to afford the time of a professional banker or manager who managed your wealth. Today, all of that is handled by automated algorithms, AI-based systems, and you can do it much more cheaply for people with even a few, much more smaller volumes of wealth. That allows you to do things cheaply, allows you to grow your customer base. So that's all good news. So that's all actually taking things what you're doing today and doing it better, cheaper, faster. That's clearly a very important area. Then there's another very important area which is broadly termed as consumerization. And that really is using technology to make the lives of the consumer, the customer, simpler, easier, hassle-free and friendlier. And the best example of that is how we today interact with Netflix or Amazon or similar systems. We have got used to this ease of use of these systems, and that similar ease of use is something that other sectors are trying to learn, whether it's healthcare, whether it's government services, whether it's banking, and so on. So this consumerization, making life simpler for customers, another very easy, let's say, early win that we can focus on. The much more challenging and the much more harder part is the new business model creation, which is really the creating backwards kind of story. How do you create the new business models? How do you test it out? How do you actually prove it out? I think that's where the interesting challenge is. That's where you need a lot of new skills. That's where you need a lot of new experimentations. And I think combining all these three things is essentially a challenge. So some of it will help make things better of what we have today. But then if you start looking at things in the future, it might require major changes in both your capabilities, your processes, your skills, and a number of other factors.
Let's spend a moment on the key aspect of regulation of AI. India has just about passed a data privacy law. I'm curious on your thoughts around that, which doesn't specifically deal with AI. These are issues of data privacy from a few years ago, and obviously the law takes time to go through consultative committees, get drafted, get ready, and we already have a completely different revolution upon us where, again, the legal system and the regulatory framework isn't ready. In a global context, and more specifically in an Indian context, how do you think artificial intelligence should really be regulated?
Well, I think it's interesting to think about the data privacy law, which is now nearly complete. What India, I think, has done with it and how that connects with where AI and potentially AI regulation is going. First, I think the government of India did the right thing by pausing a year ago, taking time to really think it through. I personally think that what emerged is the right thing for India. Actually, I think it's an interesting model for the world because it protects fundamental privacy needs, the rights of people to have consent, to consent to the use of their data. I think it actually improves upon concepts that in many respects have been used around the world, this notion of having a data fiduciary and a fiduciary duty if you are getting data from someone to deliver a service to them. But it also does it in a way that enables data to move. And I think especially for an economy like India, where people move across borders, goods move across borders, services created here, including software code, move across borders. None of that can happen without data being able to move as well. So you take that pragmatic approach to what I'll call an ability to uphold fundamental principles. I sense just from the conversations I'm having here that fundamental philosophy is something that is taking root here for AI as well. I think that's a good thing. Now we'll have to segue to the new issues, the new principles. We published this past week what we call a blueprint for governing AI and what it means for India. And I do think the public is looking for us, perhaps first and foremost, to ensure safety, to ensure that AI remains under human control, to have, as we call it, safety breaks if it's going to be used to manage or control critical infrastructure, to address a variety of other issues that are important. But I think a real focus on innovation, balanced with these regulatory needs, is going to be of fundamental importance to the Indian economy.
I'll take some questions from the audience as well. Aayush Ailawadi is the tech editor at Business Today Television. If I can have a mic sent across, please. A mic sent across and we'll get Aayush. He runs a highly popular show.
Thanks, Rahul. What a scintillating session. Thanks so much, Brad. Very quickly, when we saw Bing launch with ChatGPT, we were all really excited about it. We were early adopters here at Tech Today and at Business Today. But then we see that the market share for Bing hasn't really picked up the way it was expected to. In hindsight, Brad, do you think that opening it up to a larger set of users who perhaps use another browser, was that something that could have been done to really make it ubiquitous and take on, well, the other rivals in this space?
We'll see. I mean, we all remain very optimistic about how something like AI for something like Bing is fundamentally creating a new and better search experience. And my request for you, I guess, would be to conclude with maybe a little bit of a commercial. If you haven't used it yet, give it a try. No, go to chat. I was using the
We plugged our magazine. He's saying, go use my search engine. That's fine.
No, I'll give you just a real-world example of how you can use it. I was saying earlier, I had the 28-year-old son of a long-standing friend apply for a job at LinkedIn. LinkedIn, as you may know, is owned by Microsoft. He naturally asked me, what advice would I give him? I said, well, you know what? I know exactly how to answer this question. I went to the chat feature in Bing, and I just wrote in, I was a little bit of a prompt engineer, write an 800-word essay about what a job applicant to LinkedIn should know about the company's mission, values, products, culture, and employee experience, and include footnotes. It had 15 footnotes, all with links. I pasted it into an email. I said, read this, and then click on all the links and do more work yourself. That is the future of search, the ability to learn more about anything under the sun. That, to me, is how we use this technology to enable all of us to think smarter.
Well, we hope you've enjoyed this action-packed episode of Tech Today. We've enjoyed putting it together with all our twists and turns and folds and bends. Well, if you got the wordplay there, I would love to hear your feedback on our social media handles. Do let us know whether you want to bend it like Tech Today and what you thought about this historic week and our coverage across Tech Today, Business Today, and India Today. I'm your host Aayush Ailawadi saying until next week, adios.